for answers, hoping in earthly treasures, blinded by our lust for power, foolish minds, deceived by our own pride.
When we are gone, will we leave behind a legacy of wrong? 'Cause kingdoms fall.
What's up, fam? This is Scott Smith. Welcome back to the Time is Ripe podcast. We got a new episode for you. It's going to be a blast. I'm in the room with a couple special people as we go back in time to October 15th, 2022.
Every time.
You probably can guess who that is. He's always on the pod with me. Mr. Jarrett Top Mom Moses is here.
I could copy and paste it from a completely different episode and it would sound the same.
We go back in time, baby. That's what we do. This is the Time is Ripe, where we go back in time to discuss dates in the Ripe community. And Jarrett is always here. He's the man behind the magic of the Time is Ripe podcast. Without him, none of this would happen. So thank you, Jarrett, for being here. We appreciate you. We also got a couple other guests here. We got Mr. Esteban Nieves.
Hey.
Second, third, fourth, fifth. I don't know what time this is for him on the podcast, but he's been here before. He was definitely on the Good Soil episode back in the Dizzy. And I believe he was on the Creation Fest episode as well.
Yep.
So welcome back, Esty.
Thanks.
To the pod. We're glad to have you back.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You feeling good?
Yeah, feeling great.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this whole shenanigan that we're going to tell you about in just a second. Our final guest, which is also going to give away what we're talking about, is Mr. Jonathan Curtis is here, ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on, everybody?
Round of
Thanks
applause.
for having me. Boy, I'm breathing too loud on the mics.
Welcome to the pod, man. Jonathan, because this is your first time here, can you give a little bit of backstory of who you are?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Jonathan Curtis, I'm the site director at Carson Simpson Farm Christian Camp, where we're there to glorify God and to show Jesus through Christian camping to kids. So, that's what I could say in a little spiel there. But
there you go.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yes. Jonathan Curtis, site director, Carson Simpson Farm Christian Camp, the longest name of any organization in the history of names. But we'll probably call it CSF or Carson Simpson on this podcast rather than the full name, just to keep things simple. But yeah, Jonathan is here because the date that we're going to be talking about is Saturday, October 15th, 2022. We did a thing called WorshipFest. It was a partnership between Ripe Creatives and Carson Simpson. It was amazing. It was fantastic. And we are super excited to share with you a little bit about the story of what happened on the day. But before we get to the day of, we got to share a little bit more of the context of how we got there, because there's a lot that led up to October 15th, 2022 happening, right? Like you don't just out of nowhere throw a festival. There's usually a story that leads you to getting to the point where you're throwing an actual festival. And so Jonathan is here, I think, in a lot of ways, obviously to share about the day, but I think we got to give people a little bit of context. So in 2019, we launched Ripe Creatives, and I think it was like January 2020.
Yeah, January, February 2020, I just started at Carson Simpson, and you guys, you and I connected, yeah.
Yeah, so we started talking before the pandemic even happened about, Ripe Creatives being partnered with Carson Simpson. You were a fan of some of the Ripe music artists. Your kids love their music. You thought, hey, this could be a great place for artists from Ripe to come up and perform for our kids. You guys have chapel services in the summertime. Mm-hmm. You also have these things called Peace Weeks, where you bring in kids from the city who come out and get a camping experience for the week. And you're like, it'd be great to have your artists come and perform for them. And so we started this conversation really right before the pandemic about doing summer 2020, which...
We had dates on the calendar.
We had dates on the calendar, doing 4 or 5 dates.
Yeah.
That obviously did not happen.
Didn't happen, no. Yeah.
The world shut down.
Yeah.
The world shut
Plot
down.
twist.
And a lot of times I think when you have conversations about something and then something like a pandemic happens, it's easy to just, that be the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
What I appreciated about Jonathan is like immediately in the fall of 2020, the pandemic's still kind of roaring, but you're planning for summer 2021.
Yeah.
and you called me like August, September, like, hey, let's get this. We're going to do it next year.
Right.
We couldn't do it this year, but let's do it next year. And it was awesome. 2021 summer, brought out a handful of artists. Rashid St. Fleur, that was his first time ever performing in front of people, was at Carson Simpson.
Yep.
So that was really special for him. Cool. Now he's doing all these big things and taking over the world, but his first time gigging was at Carson Simpson.
That was first time ever? I thought it was just first time with Ripe.
I think it was his first time live.
That was the first time live performing original music.
Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, other than on Instagram Live with us on Creatives Lives.
Right.
It was his first time, like in front of people singing original stuff. Obviously,
because everything else was like streamed and covers and things like that. Because he was on the Creatives live stream that we did, like the big live stream.
Yep.
But that doesn't really count because it wasn't in front of people.
Yeah.
But that was the stuff that like motivated us to like keep the relationship going too. Because even through the pandemic, you guys were doing the Bless to Bless campaign and everything, and that really like was a huge testimony to what we're doing. Of like, hey, you're always giving back. You're always looking to form those relationships and let people share their gifts with the world, right? So I think it was cool. We learned a lot, and we're inspired to continue to work. Yeah,
it was good. And we that first summer, like, it was pretty simple. We just brought artists out, used kind of the sound system that was in the pavilion, and made it work as best we could. But it was beautiful. And again, like September 2021, you're talking to me about, all right, let's do this again in 2022. Right. And we even did some of the training for your staff and stuff like that, which was super cool. And I remember, I think it was the first summer in 2021.
It was August of 21,
you took me on a walk around the site of the campus. So it's still the first summer when Rashid is starting to gig, and Abel and Rick Harmony are coming out and all this stuff. And he starts walking me around the campus because Carson Simpson is huge. I mean, can you give a context on the scale of the camp?
Yeah, it's about like 85 acres, and we use about 65 of it, and like 30 of that is just open space. A lot of open space and fields and shady areas, but just a lot of flat and hills.
Yep. And there's like a bunch of pavilions around, and then there's obviously some buildings on the camp, a huge Olympic-sized swimming pool. And it was like you never treated us like, hey, I'm just booking you for a gig. Right. It was like, how can we help you guys? So you became a site for us doing a family night where we had a pool party, talking about, hey, do you guys want to do a retreat here sometime? Yeah. Just like very forward thinking in the conversation. And you took me on a walk, I remember that August, around the campgrounds. And you were just like, hey, what would it look like if we threw a festival here?
Yeah. And
my response was, no. No.
I didn't actually know that.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't a matter of it wouldn't be great or the site couldn't handle it or anything like that. It was more financially. Yeah. I was like, I don't feel comfortable spending that kind of money in one day.
Yeah.
Because I know what we spend on like our creatives events on Tuesdays. And I'm like, to throw one day festival, we could do 25, 30 creatives events.
Yeah, those are so small scale, but they still cost us a decent amount. And we're even getting most of it at a discount from people.
Absolutely, from you included.
And that's why I think your first one was, do you know what those cost? Right? Like just the reality
I was just like, this is it's so expensive. Yeah. And I was like, even if I had that kind of money given to me, somebody's like, hey, here's whatever, $50,000, here's a check, go throw a festival, I would be like, can I use this $50,000 to throw 25 other events or 10 other smaller scale events as outreaches in the city? Because that's how I would want to spend the resources personally. So that was kind of my no, wasn't like, no, we don't love you, Carson Simpson. No, this camp isn't going to work for that, but more just from a fiscal responsibility, stewardship. And I was like, I don't really know how I feel about spending that kind of money in a day. Yeah.
Well, and you had explored with us about alternative, like, hey, you could ask a church if they want to chip in or that. And I think it took away from the original thought, which was everybody just comes and worships together, right? Like where it's not motivated. Because, as soon as everybody chips in, they want to have a say. So it was cool to have the, I think that was different than what we were thinking, to be able to just have a place where everybody comes without motivation. Right?
Yeah, and that was you. Yeah, and your vision for the festival was like, what would it look like to have the Big C church of this area have a place with no pretense, no ulterior motive, just worship together.
Yeah.
And it be a unifying space for the region.
Yeah.
And for everybody be invited. And yeah, it was just kind of like a brilliant, concept idea, but I, still from the financial end of things, I was kind of a little bit nervous about that.
It was my wife's idea, by the way. I'm going to take credit. I'll be in trouble. So.
Yeah. It was her idea for sure.
Great
I remember
idea.
that as well.
Jessica Curtis, it was your idea.
Big props. Big props.
And so that was August 2021. We turned the corner into the spring. We're planning for 2022. And I don't remember exactly what month it was.
March.
It was March. Yeah. So I get a phone call or a text. I think it was a phone call from you explaining some stuff that had just transpired. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
So I was in a board meeting, actually, and there had been a grant that had surfaced, and it was a really quick turnaround, and it was a one-page grant. For all you grant writers out of there, that doesn't exist. So having a one-page grant opportunity where a private donor decided they wanted to give $1 million away to camps, United Methodist camps across the country, for projects that were going to have sustainability. If you use it twice, right? So prolonged sustainability, and they didn't want capital improvement. They didn't want just, hey, we want to fund this. It was try to come up with new ideas to make sure your program lasts a long haul. And it just kind of we toyed around with a couple different ideas of where do we go. But then I think it ultimately came back to this, hey, this could be this chance to do a worship festival. So I'd written this grant 3 different ways, and then just ultimately came back to, hey, we would want to throw a worship festival to spread the gospel. That's our number one goal. Obviously, it will help us hopefully with camp recruitment. It might help us with staffing. It might help with donations and giving, but that wouldn't be the goal. It would just be nice to come together and, just hopefully have people come to know the Lord or get plugged into a church and congregation where they may not know. And again, being that unifying concept. And the grant team encouraged, partnering with like local organizations. And so I was like, well, let me just include these Ripe people because that, they do some cool stuff with us. And I think, to be fair, Scott and I talked early on, and he was very intentional about saying, if I'm going to represent this team, this body well, I need to be honest with you and say it can't just be hey, you're with us for now as you're getting started and stuff. I want to make sure you're protecting your artists and your teams, right? And I think, and I really admire that about you. And I remember saying, like, no, if we're going to grow, we're going to grow together, right? Let's make this more than just Carson Simpson looks good, right? Like, it's not about Carson Simpson; it's about the ministry, the kingdom, right? So, so I think that was. Because I didn't ask you for permission, I just put you in there, which I was like, I probably should have. But I think it was because I was
received
covering
the news after the grant. was received and accepted.
Which we did not expect to get. I mean, we did not. And the grant,
for sure.
the grant upped their original donation from 1.1 to 2.5 million because 4.5 was asked for across the country. So
that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, but like 3 out of the 4 camps in our area got it. So that was cool too. Yep. Just a testament to what God's doing in this area, right?
And it wasn't a $1.1 million grant to Carson Simpson.
No, it was not. That
you're completely aware of this. It was much smaller, a lot less zeros number than that.
I was going to say, we could have just bought the entire festival and run it for 12 years without much.
That's so true.
But yeah, it was a situation where I just remember the phone call, and I was laughing like between me and the Lord, because I was like, God, you are so unique that you would almost force me to do this, because I was so not for spending that kind of money in one day to do a festival. I was like, I don't feel like that's where I'm at. I'd rather do these like chunk events in Philly because we know the value of them.
Right.
And then you write us into the grant, which basically mandates that the money has to be spent in a way where we're partnering with you to do this event. And I was like, oh, great, this ought to be fun.
And in 2022.
And yeah, it has to be done by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I'm just kind of like, well, I just got strong-armed into helping run a festival.
That's right.
And it was great, obviously. And so we get into the summer. We're starting to plan a lot. Jarrett's involved in a ton of those conversations. Aunt G was involved in a lot of those conversations. But really what led to Jarrett was in the summer of 2022, before the festival, I had told you right off the rip, I said, like, I probably need Sean Prez.
Yep.
For visual stuff. we're going to need Jarrett behind the scenes with sound stuff. And we're going to need Aunt G to be the like through line to make sure we're transitioning well so that it's a high standard.
Right.
I said, if I have those 3 people and I have Dar behind the scenes to help with some organizational stuff, I think it's possible. But without taking care of these people, like I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And you didn't know who Jarrett was at that point.
No.
But
I don't think he knew any of us.
Yeah,
No,
Aunt either.
True. I only knew some of the artists and you. But
Right.
yeah.
The first time we met was the family night that he came out to like kind of give the idea to everybody.
Oh yeah,
which
that's right.
you had already told me about it because I think you called me like not even an hour after you get off the phone with him. You're calling me, and I couldn't tell if you were excited or upset when you first brought it up.
Probably a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
I would say intimidated more than upset.
yeah.
You know, it's just
That's a
like
good
this
way.
is
Yeah.
this is a lot, and this is going to be a lot of work and a lot of planning, and could be challenging.
A
But
7-month turnaround. Yeah, it wasn't a long time.
yeah, it was very quick. You know, March to
Yeah.
October 15th is real tight. To try to put on something at that scale.
But the Lord was in it from the beginning. I mean, just like, it was crazy.
So yeah, and I remember leveraging the summer of 2022 to try to get like Jarrett and Ant involved with the summer dates with the kids, like having Ant come and DJ, having Jarrett come and set up sound, and even the first time you did it, like volunteering.
Yeah.
Because I said to you, like, I think this is a good inroad for you to meet Jonathan, and I'm hoping that if you guys get along and connect, he'll want to use you on the festival. And I remember, you know, and that was kind of a thing. You were like, yeah, I was already like down to use Jarrett.
Yeah.
But
You said do it. I was like, all right. Let's do it.
So, but it was good. Like, I mean, it was obviously different. Summer 2022 was better than summer 2021.
Yeah, it was a step up
From
for
a
sure.
production standpoint with the summer dates.
Absolutely.
Because of Jarrett's involvement and Ant's involvement. And we also brought some more artists out and all this kind of stuff. So it was just a more robust experience.
If you want to be realistic, I was helping the summer before because I think every time you guys went, you're FaceTiming me asking me how to use their board.
That's hilarious.
That's what that was.
Listen,
I was like, what's the DI box, Scott? I don't know what you mean.
Jonathan knows nothing.
Oh, no.
I know very little.
Yeah.
Esty and Jarrett know everything. Which is helpful. But
on that end.
I mean,
Anywhere else.
to be fair, that board was not a regular board.
It was just that against a wall.
It's a contained box. We just have it housed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's all
It's
it
from
is.
like 1973.
Well, that may be.
I feel like the Who played on that.
That's right. Vintage. Vintage classics.
Yeah.
The funny part was they still make that board, and I was just like, Scott, give me the name. And I just looked it up, and I was able to tell him just by looking at a picture, all right, turn that up, turn that down. That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
it was very, it was fine. It was way better in 2022 than 2021.
Got
Okay,
his iPad
that's the
walking
important
around,
thing.
playing with the levels.
But all of this, you know, it's just building this relationship. We did the family nights. We did, you know, all these conversations. You came out to a Ripe family night. You guys hosted us for another pool party in summer 2022. Just like this relationship between Ripe Creatives, Ripe community, and Carson Simpson is like, you know, evolved so much. But all of that leads us up to, you know, like coming up to October 15th.
Yeah.
Can we just share a little bit, especially with you two, Jarrett and Jonathan, like big things that had to get done to be ready for October 15th? What were those things?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. Which I just want to preface, this was our best planned event that Ripe has ever done. Like Good Soil, I wasn't able to be a part of that planning process, so I don't really know. That was our biggest event before this, but WorshipFest was the one that we had the most time to plan and that we were able to put the most time into. Because this wasn't like, oh, we had like 3 months. No, we did this like, what, 8 months?
7.
We were 7 months we were planning this. Like the amount of time that we put into this was great with almost weekly calls or every other week calls.
Every other week.
Every other week at least.
And
yeah.
sometimes like there may have been points where like it was a little redundant, but it was things that needed to be said. And saying it redundantly, saying it over and over again solidified it for all of us, and like we didn't miss it. We were able to be like, all right, yes, we know that this is what we're using here. This is the piece that we're calling in. Like this is what we need to get, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think especially from the production side of things, it would like if we had not had those calls, something would have got missed from a backlining perspective,
100%.
right? And so it was really important to have all of those moments where we just either are repeating, because sometimes we'd say it differently and then we'd have to walk it back like, well, was it this or that, right? So, and from a facilities perspective, I mean, it was new territory, right? And there was no playbook, and it was like, yeah, you have a physical space, but now you've got
How do you turn it into a festival?
right? How do you where do you park people in October when the ground's soft, right? And so we had making those relationships with the YMCA, which was great. Food trucks, who knew they would be almost impossible to find, but having some really invested people at our site that went out and got them, right? So that was really important for us, because we thought we weren't going to have food because it was just that hard to get it. But to running power and storing it appropriately so that it's there forever, right? So I mean, it was just to hitting all the things, and then you're working with an independent production team, right? And you're you're throwing that into balance, and trusting each other. I think it was a huge element, a huge takeaway. It was like, you just have to trust, right? You got to trust each other. So,
Jordan Productions, Marcus Jordan
Marcus
was
Jordan.
the guy who did production for WorshipFest in October.
Freaking love
And
Marcus.
and that was early on too, right? That was like
well,
April, right?
You
It was
said,
still cold.
I mean, I said like, I don't think Ripe can handle this yet.
Right.
At this scale, we don't have the equipment.
That was the biggest thing. Like, we have the equipment for smaller scale stuff, but for an actual festival that's covering the size field that we were, we didn't have half of what we needed.
Right.
Yeah, there's no way to do it in a way that would be like, because you want to do it right.
Yeah, you had kept saying we want to honor the grant. We want to be good stewards of the grant, because this is
Yeah, if you want to
this
be
is-
able to get it again,
Right.
Because that is a part of the grant thing. Is like,
Yeah.
if you steward it well, and you can prove that you stewarded it well, and
right,
this is something you might be able to get again.
right.
So you want to do your best with it, and you just want to be excellent before the Lord. So I called Jonathan Centeno. Shout out to Jonathan from In the Light. He runs a discipleship house in North Philly. A very good friend of mine, and they had done festivals before with One City, One Love, and some other things that they had people come in town for. And so I just called Jonathan. I was like, who do you recommend?
Right.
I actually asked who did sound at this thing, and he was like, this other company did, but who I recommend is actually Marcus Jordan. He's a great dude, believer, and does things really well. And I've really enjoyed working with him. That's who I would call. So that's who we called.
Right.
It was just like on a recommendation. This guy does.
We had
these.
never met him.
Yeah, we had no idea. We didn't even know the scale of his operation.
Yeah.
Like, I just figured, he probably does this from. No, this is like what this dude does.
Yeah.
Travels the country with teams and equipment and puts on major level stuff.
Big gigs. Yeah.
Yeah, like what we did was actually small
Right.
for them. It was like small scale for what his production company usually does. So
I could tell. I was looking at their equipment. I'm like, this is scaled down. This isn't what they can do. They can do way more than
He's
this.
walking around like, I didn't know we had this still. Like, all right.
shout out to Marcus, boss mode. But yeah, so just like all these things had to come together. Backlining was all donated by churches, but let us borrow from churches, or even Jarrett.
I think the only thing we had to rent was the in-ears, but even then, a church rented it for us and let us use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you didn't use ST stuff.
We used his P16s. I'm talking about the wireless ones that we had for the singers and the performers. Like, we had wireless packs, and it wasn't cheap ones. Those were like some of the nicest that Shure itself, like that company, has to offer. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big old rack. That was fun to figure out, because I'd never worked with them. I'm like, how do I connect that to that? Oh, that one's connected to, but what about this one? I'm just so confused.
Jarrett was
I'm just
geeking
like, I
out.
had to lift it into a truck later. It was heavy. That's all I got.
I was really glad
Jarrett
that I
was
didn't move
nerding
that.
out all day. He was so excited. It was good. And SD's church, Manoa, even gave us some stuff. And
Heck yeah.
super thankful for you guys always.
Very.
But yeah, the day of the event was really cool.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing for me was I was worried about it being cold.
I was not.
Yeah, well, you're a fool or a faith.
That morning was
faith-filled
cold,
fool.
man.
That morning was cold, man.
I was nervous. I was
Friday
nervous
night
that morning.
was really
But
cold.
honestly, I like part of Friday night was like, oh, this is awesome in itself when the Ripe's doing the sound check and it's just the glow of the work lights and stuff. It sounded great. Yeah.
We did sound checks on Friday night. They set up the stage on like Wednesday. Sound came in on Friday.
Yeah, we did a custom electric work. That shout out to Needs
Yeah, it
Electrical.
wasn't done until like they were setting up.
Yo,
Wow.
because he went.
It was done in time.
Well, so they can't like shout out to Needs Electrical. They had their guy on the site and asked, "What do you want to mark as productions?" And they're like, "Well, we want this." And so he sat there for 4 hours and custom rigged it all out to the point where like they were taking out their cables and they saw his cables. They're like, yeah, put it back in the box. They got the right one. So yeah. I mean, it was awesome the level of service that was given.
Yeah,
So,
it was amazing.
Yeah.
So we did sound check Friday night, and then Saturday and run a show was also a big planning point for months. Like that was a big thing that obviously I spent a lot of time on.
That was something we had to spend the most time on because like the equipment was way easier because we could just say, all right, this is what we need, this is what we're using, this is what we have, and done. We didn't have to touch it again. Planning it out, like scheduling and everything was what was constantly changing. So that's why we kept having to have all those meetings because we kept having to kind of switch gears to make it work.
And there was a real fear, I think, of it being overloaded.
Yes.
Like, do we have too much going on and not enough turnaround time, right? And I think that was a real, like, we're going to wait and see what it sounds like. So.
And we put margin in different places and shortened some sets and stuff to make sure. And we ended up actually having a couple of people that were supposed to be on it that weren't on it.
Right.
And so it ended up working out pretty much perfectly in terms of time. But just so everybody knows, this was a 5-hour festival. You made a decision early on to not do evening.
Correct, yeah.
Because you didn't want to have to
lights
deal
for it,
with the insurance and lights and all that stuff. So it was a daytime festival. We had perfect weather.
Yep.
Perfect weather.
It was amazing.
In mid-October, it felt like
75.
middle of September.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. And
Sunburn.
no rain, sun out.
Yeah, I did. I got sunburned. I wasn't happy.
You got
about it.
sunburned?
I got sunburned. I don't know how anybody else did it, but I did.
I was hiding under that canopy as much as I could.
You're playing with the mics too long. Yeah, I got you.
I saw that sun. I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen.
That's right. Who would have thought?
I don't think I got sunburned,
No.
but maybe I did. It was beautiful, man. And your whole team, you had tons of volunteers. Camp staff that came back for
and
the
helped.
day of.
Yeah.
And it was just, we actually threw a festival.
Yeah.
It was kind of insane, to go from concept idea to getting a grant to pulling it off in 7 months was kind of, surreal of a situation. And I just remember day of, like everybody's moving, everybody's running. There's gators flying up and down the property, dropping things off, getting people where they need to go.
Yeah.
The hospitality tent for the artists and worship teams and all that stuff. And, 12 o'clock, we didn't fire a gun, but basically had like
Thank you for not doing that.
the
There were
start.
cops there. They wouldn't have liked it. So.
Well, I guess that old guy prayed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Dr. Reverend Andrew Foster.
Yeah,
Dr. Reverend Andrew
He
Foster.
did a great job.
Yeah, he prayed us in, and we got moving. And then the flow of the event was dope because it was churches, worship teams,
Yep.
Ripe artists, Ripe poets, and the Ripe worship team, like intermixed throughout the day.
And singer-songwriters, right?
Yeah, hip-hop artists, singer-songwriters, poets, and the worship team, all from Ripe. And then, so we were kind of like 75% of the day, maybe 80% of the day was Ripe people performing
Yeah.
or leading or whatever. And then obviously a few worship teams as well. But it was just an amazing day.
Yeah.
One of the highlights, for sure for me, was Esteban and Priscilla Nieves.
Hey,
There he is. We've been waiting to get this man's voice in here. Esty has been a part of Ripe Worship forever. Him and his wife,
actually
Priscilla.
not. It's only been like 2 years.
Yeah, well,
That's
as long as
it's
Ripe Worship.
existed.
Oh, really?
is.
Oh, I actually didn't know that. So that's a
I
plot
think so.
twist.
I mean, maybe like 3 weeks.
You
Earlier.
maybe missed like a month of it.
All right, cool. I don't feel that weird then.
You've been a part of
been
the
promoted.
majority of Ripe Worship's gigs that they've done over the last 2 years. You've been there, but this was one of the second times with a Ripe event, maybe third, I guess, because technically Canada You did performance
yeah.
stuff. You did a
Oh, I forgot
creatives
about that.
event as well. But you and Priscilla like got to do a set as artists, Esteban and Priscilla Nieves. Still thinking of a name. Hopefully that'll happen soon. But you guys got to perform as a couple, and I just thought that was super, super dope. So what did you think of just like getting that opportunity and getting to do that and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think for us it was super cool. I mean, we haven't done music just us two together consistently in probably like 2 years or something like that. So I think the last time before like 2022 that we did gigs consistently was like the end of 2019. So, and we kind of only had a small plan, a small idea of actually like doing more stuff. But you know, ever since being in a part of Ripe and just seeing our friends like express themselves creatively, and then getting to do like the Ripe Creatives event, Priscilla and I have just been like, okay, we actually like doing this. So the WorshipFest was just like icing on the cake for that. It was just like, it was an awesome environment. Like a bunch of our friends were there. Ripe was there. Actually, like Priscilla's mom and one of her grandparents came. That's awesome. So like, it was just cool being able to be there and show off our, you know, like show our gifts and play some of our original stuff. And yeah, we haven't done that in a really long time, so it was cool. It was a good time.
Killed it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just really killed it.
Nice.
Yeah, it was super. I was just super excited because we had different transitions and things happen with the lineup, with different churches, kind of having to do different time frames and all that kind of stuff. And we said, like, here, there's like this 20-minute slot. You know, what do we just eliminate it because of how tight the schedule was, which was like an option.
Yeah.
And I just kind of really felt like, you know, I think I'm going to ask Esteban and Priscilla. And if they don't want to do it, then we'll get rid of this extra set, and that'll give us more breathing room. And you said yes. And I was so thankful that you did. And it just felt perfect. And you guys did something unique that nobody else did. That just kind of set your set apart. And I think it's a testament to how diverse our team is.
Yeah, for sure.
To how there's so many different people with so many different skill sets and sounds, just different sounds that make up what Ripe is. And it was more on full display because you and Priscilla were there, being a part of that with us. So I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
The other artists that performed, Abel, Rick Harmony, Leah Wren, Rashid St. Fleur.
Yeah.
We kind of made Rashid like the headliner.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
In large part because of his relationship with Carson Simpson.
Yeah.
Like we felt like it was kind of a full circle. You know, Rashid's first time ever performing. His original stuff was here. Like, you know, and it's not to say he was the headliner, but it was just the order of the show.
Yeah.
And we wanted Rashid to kind of get that set. And I think he killed it too.
Yeah.
It
he
meant
did
a
great.
lot to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about, Jarrett?
Oh, I was just thinking about how like it wasn't even it was a lot of like trying to guide the flow because we were thinking about the energy of the whole day. Like that's why we put certain artists in certain places. Like what is the vibe going to be at this point? All right, we need people to get more excited here. We're going to have Aaron or Rick out right then because we need something to wake everyone up and get them going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was adding you guys was awesome because I think that was it added the balance, right? I think it was. I thought it was a really cool thing. You know, it really did showcase what Ripe can do. It showcased so many different variety of music forms and art expressions, right?
Yeah.
And I think we kept saying that of like, oh, it's just going to add such balance and depth to like everything we're trying to accomplish, right? Because you know, I think it's hard nowadays to find like a niche in what you like to listen to. You know, everybody likes everything. So
True.
Yeah.
True.
And in Hatboro in particular.
absolutely,
Like when we throw
Who
a
are you
show
reaching?
in Germantown in Philadelphia, like it's pretty hip hop centric.
yeah,
Right. And that just makes sense. But in Hatboro where the camp is, I think it was a value to have a bend towards singer-songwriter stuff.
yeah.
And the way that we did, I think it was just perfect.
Yeah, it was
like
good.
I just felt
Yeah.
like God is so sovereign. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Amen.
He's putting all this stuff together in the way and in the order that makes sense for what makes sense for the audience. And it was really dope having the poets there.
Yeah, that was cool. I love
having-
that.
There was a lot of love for the poets in the crowd.
Yeah, there
it was
was.
impressive.
There
I was so happy the poets were there because like you're saying we had margin between all the changeovers. We didn't have much margin when
Because I kept adding poets.
Yeah, no.
I was
the,
gonna say,
the
yeah,
poets
yeah.
were what helped me because
Yeah, they helped
I made
transition.
sure I made a point. And I think you did put it into the scheduling where they got put in between big changes.
Yes.
So I could still work on stage while the poets were going, and
Yeah.
it gave me a chance to actually get everything done.
Yep.
And we wouldn't be able to do the changes very well if we didn't have all that backlining and just tell everyone you have to use this.
Yes.
If we had had the bands bringing their own amps up, doing swaps like that, it would have taken like 30 years to actually get everything done. I told a friend of mine the amount of time, I was like, bro, they're giving me 5-minute changeovers. He choked on the phone. I heard him. Like, he was taking a drink from water. He's like, 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5
They were,
minutes is
they
quick.
were 10. They were 10 with the
minimum 15 at
It
normal
was 5,
Yeah,
it was
true.
Five
It was
with me.
5 for artists and then like 10 for a band. But yeah, I think, but there was no, people were excited that they did not have to bring their own stuff too. Of like,
True,
oh, I just
yeah.
show up and play. Like,
Yeah.
plug in and play, please.
Yeah.
It was helpful.
Yeah, it was intense. But I just knew from my own experience at festivals, I always felt like there's so much dead space.
That's
much
so
dead
true.
space.
That is
where
so true.
The stage is being flipped and set up that I was like, why don't they just have poets perform?
Right.
Like, why can't
a great
spoken
idea.
word artists live in this transitional time while people are getting set up on stage? Somebody gets to do a piece.
Right.
I don't know. So that's always been a burden of mine. I was like, well, we're running our own festival. We're going to
Let's
do
do
it.
it. Yeah.
I'm gonna do
It was
Absolutely.
awesome. It was,
You know?
yeah, that was amazing.
We're going to
having
try
them.
this out today. And, I'm sure Greg would be like, dude, there were so many people behind me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's,
But he did have a huge team behind him
Yeah.
whenever he was doing that. But that's fine.
oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
a big, it was
That-
a big
the
team.
big team.
I remember
It was.
the
The
team that was
stage
like, oh,
up
that
for
is-
you there, Greg. Sorry.
There's like 400 singers. They had a choir. No, that was awesome. But
No, we were out of mics.
Yeah, that's true. You guys were on it.
I think I would,
great.
give the poets maybe more of a focal point.
Yeah.
In the future, give them like their own little like moment. But I still think it's valuable to have these, transitionary time where people aren't just like, okay, that set was good. Now I'm just sitting around and waiting. Or now
Yeah.
I'm getting drawn up to go up here or go look at this or go
Or
do
leave.
this or just leave.
Right? Right. Because that's the biggest thing. How
People
do you get
didn't
people
leave
to
at
stay?
all.
No, there was
Yeah.
a lot. And if they did, there was a lot that came back too. Like,
Yeah,
that was
true.
like, hey, I got to duck out real
Or
quick.
new
I'll
people
be
were
back.
coming.
Yeah. And
True.
we're competing with the Phillies in the World Series, So
Yeah, that's facts.
they were,
Yeah, we were.
yeah. Or they were going to.
But yeah, we had over 500 people come
At least, yeah.
on the grounds.
500 to
that
600
day,
people
500
that day.
600 people come to the event, which was really, really cool, especially for the first time ever doing
Yeah.
it.
And just as a side note on that, like I remember like 2 weeks prior talking to my boss and like she didn't want to sound nervous, but there was definitely that phone call where she, are people signing up to come? I said, well, there's like 250, 300 people pre-registered. She lost her mind because I think she was nervous no one was going to show up. Right? And then I'm like, yeah, we're up to 650. She's like, that's crazy, right? So yeah, it really just, we appreciate everybody that bought in, right? Like of saying, hey, we think this event is going to be fun, right? So, and it's free. What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, it was good, man. And we closed out the day, after Rashid, Jonathan and I came up and shared a little bit about the story that's on the podcast of how this whole thing came together and the grant and God's provision and the hope to be able to continue to do festivals on the grounds in the future and all that kind of stuff. And then we went into the closing set of the day, which was Ripe Worship. And I always feel like, man, I'm never trying to like push Ripe Worship to go gig. Like that's on them to decide. They're all worship leaders at their own churches. They're a family, collective. But I think there's something so special whenever you guys do get an event that's kind of yours
Yeah,
as Ripe Worship to like, all right, this is us.
yeah,
This is our thing that we get to steward. And we're not being put into a box as a booked entity to do worship this way. We can design it and pick the songs and, make it our own. And what was that process like leading up to WorshipFest for the Ripe Worship team?
it was pretty sweet. I think Josh and Em kind of had like the biggest role in like picking songs and stuff like that. But in rehearsals and stuff, it was really fun just coming together and kind of like making our own arrangements and stuff like that, changing up the songs to be more like us. And I think it's always cool when we come together and do stuff because we mix like a ton of different genres. Like we do some gospel, we do some CCM, and it's like a unique way I think of doing worship. And all of us come from different churches, so like we all bring well, except for like Priscilla and I, you know, because we go to the same church, and like Mike and Liv, but we all bring something different to the table, and it's just sweet to see how musically it comes together, and it's just it's fun, and it's cool to be on the same page with everybody, spiritually as well. And I think we always reach like a level of excellence that a lot of us miss when we just like are in our own churches on a Sunday, and just having like all of these leaders from different places come together. It really like it changes the vibe, and it's always super cool and super fun.
Yep. It was awesome.
It was extremely powerful. Yeah. It's very hard to see a dry eye in the house. So, I mean, it like there was moments of just being able to pause and reflect and watch the crowd as you guys were going. And it was just cool to see, like you could see unity between people who go to different churches or, you know, have different ideas on this or that. And it didn't matter. You could see unity happening and healing happening within families, right? And just like, this is a moment that they are having together, which was really cool, you know, so. And a lot of the staff that came to serve that day for us were like, we saw the Holy Spirit working in them, right? Like, and so it was just such a cool. I know a lot of them after the fact were like, "What just happened? Like, what was that? That was awesome, right?" Like, you know, so yeah, it was a really powerful set you guys put on for sure.
Amen.
That was something great because that's what Ripe does essentially. Like there's no denominations in Ripe. Ripe is a combination of everything, and it's just the recognition that we all love God and we're all coming together for that idea. And that's what WorshipFest was too. It was a combination of just all peoples, all tongues coming together, just worshiping God. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's been like a natural marrying of the two ministries that we have, right? So, like, I think, you know, because as much as we are a United Methodist camp, you know, but camp has always been for anybody can come to camp, right? Like, and I think so that's been such a cool partnership to grow of like, hey, we're here for the same reason, right? We're here to grow the kingdom, and that camp has always, one a colleague of mine I really respect was camp is church for a lot of people, right? And I feel like Ripe is church for a lot of people. You know, wherever you guys are gathered, you know, you can feel the Holy Spirit's there, right? So I think it's been a natural marrying of those two things, right? Which has been cool.
Well, it's real. It's real. It is so cool because I think for me personally, this has been like my whole heart has been the unity stuff and bringing people together cross-culturally and cross-denominationally and like advocating for unity. And when WorshipFest was like pitched to me as like, okay, this thing that we're going to gather churches together, we're going to gather the region together, Ripe makes the most sense, right? Because we're not an individual church's team. We're a conglomeration of a lot of different places coming together. And also Tim Doring, to me, immediately made sense.
Yeah.
So Tim is this guy who runs this thing called Netzer Ministries, which is basically his entire life is focused on bringing churches together and bringing unity amongst pastors and the region and getting churches all praying for the same kind of stuff for their region so that they can see revival, breakthrough, all that kind of stuff. And so whenever you like pitch this idea, I was like, oh, Tim needs to be the guy that is the voice at the end doing like the gospel call because he bleeds this stuff. Like this is his whole heart is for unity in the Big C church. And I hope, you know, by the grace of God that he could be an advocate as we potentially do this thing in the future to see it grow because he's so connected to the suburban churches out there to be able to let them know about WorshipFest or whatever iteration of this that we do in the future. I think that was really special and, you know, just given a challenge, like a very simple, you need the Lord. You need Jesus. You know, you can't do this on your own. You need people, you need community and invitation.
We all have that ability, right? Like we all, I think, you know, there's so much, and especially as Tim spoke to it, you know, of the feeling of hopelessness. There's, you know, can be such a perpetuating feeling of hopelessness, but for him to just be like, bring it back to what did Jesus tell us to do, right? Like love the Lord your God, right? And then love each other. So I think it was what, and it was so cool just to see such a diverse crowd, right? And to just be like, and to him to challenge every single person, every single one of us to be like, make an impact in your community. And you can through God's grace, right? Like you can, if you let him steer you, right? So, yeah.
It was beautiful, man. And I think one of the coolest things was, again, on paper it wasn't the goal, but to see some of your young staff like really impacted by the day and just like making decisions that they want to come back and work at camp again next summer.
That's a win. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, man, this is what this is for.
Yeah.
Like to give them a dream of what's possible. Because it's easy to just be like, oh, camp is this, camp is this. And you're new blood. You started right before the pandemic. Pandemic forces us to be creative and get outside of our own normalcy.
Right.
And how do we make this work? And for them to see like, oh, this thing that's been around for 100+ years.
Yeah.
Just through a festival.
Yeah.
You know
Not
what I
because
mean?
we're good at it, but because God said do it.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
Yeah, but I'm
Right?
just saying like that, you have no idea the messaging that gives to young people, teenagers, about what's possible, you know? And yeah, it's just, it was really, really special. I just felt like, man, I'm so honored to be asked by the Lord to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you didn't ask me if you could put Ripe Creatives into the grant, because I would have said no. I would have said absolutely not.
That's
Good
so
luck,
funny.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
But
Well, and if I could share one testimony from one of the staff members who's coming back, just of him sharing, and I didn't ask his permission either, shocker, but just kind of him sharing the, man, I've never felt so connected, and I feel like God's just pulling me to, keep this going. And it's really like, it's made it easier to be transparent and be like, then we got to do this every day with our kids, man. Like that's all we're trying to do in the summer. And you now, like Tim said, and we try to reiterate, like you have that opportunity to pass this to another staff or mentor kids, right? And get them to feel like, hey, you can live your faith every day, right? You can try to serve the Lord every day. You got to let him be in charge, but you can do it. So, so it was really powerful to have that kind of space to have that conversation, right? Like of, hey, this, and I think it's creating that, and it came as a result of a really powerful experience. So yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
So good. Man, oh man. Worship Fest 2022, baby. October 15th. What a day.
That's crazy.
Thank you, Jonathan, for believing in us and
absolutely.
inviting us into the process. And, I think that there's a lot of conversations that have been happening. I mean, there's 1,000,001 things we would do differently next year.
Sure.
If we did the exact same thing, like ways that we would improve it or change it. But there's so much like potential from this.
Yes.
So true.
Having done it, there's a lot behind the scenes that, does Carson Simpson do more than this?
Right.
Do we do this every year? Do we do even more than this
Right.
in the future? Is there a worship fest kind of thing? Is there an artist fest kind of thing that's a spin-off own kind of space?
Right.
But yeah, it's just like kind of a dream come true that we get to hear the Lord and figure it out together. And, we just had our family night a couple, weeks ago after this whole Worship Fest thing, and had you come back, and just express gratitude to the team for being a part of it. And we kind of said, hey, as a team, this thing with Carson Simpson, this is going to be our one all ripe event in 2023.
Yeah.
Like rather than us try to throw our own thing, it's obviously we gig and do all these other things, but in terms of all ripe, being a part of something, we're gonna say, all right, this Carson Simpson one date festival thing, we're gonna be a part of that again.
Yeah.
In 2023, and everybody I think was. Oh yeah, of course. Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's family.
It was a given. It was like definitely. It was like
So
We appreciate it. Yeah.
developing the relationship, man, and I think even there's possibility of us doing a retreat with you guys
It'd be great.
and being able to get some time where we can plan our year and be more effective as a team. God knows what He's doing. I mean, this
Yeah,
all
He does.
started because you're the brother-in-law of one of our board members,
Right. Like, because you and I didn't know each other at all.
we didn't.
No, it was just more of a, I knew your music a little bit and said, hey, Joel, can I have Scott's number, right? And so, we just kind of connected. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Shout out to Joel Bielefeld.
Joel Bielefeld. Well, he also helped us with the day of planning.
True.
'Cause we were just talking about it, and he's like, I'll make a list, guys. I was like, all right, thanks, Joel. So,
Yeah, he did. He did everything.
yeah,
Joel's the best.
he was the best. Yeah.
It's good. Any other thoughts from you guys? Like just coming out of it? Stuff you...
Props to Marcus's team.
Yes.
Yanni
Yeah,
and-
true.
Yanni.
True.
I can't remember the
Yanni.
board, but Yanni and I we clicked side stage.
so
It was
thankful for you,
amazing.
Jarrett.
I love Yanni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that like they had that amazing video wall and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, like that
Oh,
was
the LED
so
wall.
cool.
The only
Like-
thing that was bad about that day, the wind
The
catching
wind,
it
yeah,
and
the
almost
wind
like
was-
crashing it into the bass amp.
That was
did
crazy.
happen.
But he was so calm and cool. He's like just walking over. We got it, guys. We'll
Yeah,
take it. I was
yeah.
like, all right.
It's probably happened before.
Marcus, you all right? You all right, bro?
Yeah, Scott kept asking me, he's like, should we do something? I'm like, Scott, I'm not touching that.
No. No. Thank you for not touching that.
Well, I think he felt like if they strapped it down, it would almost turn it into a sail.
Yes.
And then
That
it
was
could.
that was exactly the sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it couldn't be. It had to be able to move. Yeah, it had to
Yeah,
be-
had to swing.
But just you're right. Like a huge shout out to them because just him showing up in that conversation, which we didn't share too much about, but him just being willing to say, what I think he said it as, "You tell me what'll work, and we'll make it work." You know, because he just believed in what we were doing. He
Yeah,
bought
he
in.
can't.
right
He
away.
can't do that for anything else.
No.
But he did that for us.
Yeah, Marcus.
Right.
It wasn't that we just told Marcus, "Hey, we want to hire you for this," and that was that. Like he was in a bunch of the calls planning
Yes.
with us.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
that he just
And he added
saw it and
stuff
showed
And he added
that
stuff.
we never would have been able to have.
Asked good questions. He thought about. I mean, his ideas, even future minded.
Yo,
thoughts,
the way
like-
he was talking about 2023
I was like-
during the day of 2022,
Yes.
he's like, so here's what we're
I
going to
didn't
do.
hear that.
Well, and
I was like, wait, what?
and I-
He's like, you see those basketball hoops? We're going to cover those with this. And I was like, dude,
Oh
you're
man,
extensions
that's amazing.
well, just him. I really admired how he sat off to the side and just kind of took it all in, the music to the affect of the crowd, and just took it all in and was able to speak to that, right? Of just like being able to see people out and about. I mean, some of the people I hadn't seen since COVID started, so it was
Wow.
crazy to just be able to have that. You provide that space of unity, right? So so that's really cool, and just having him just be from soup to nuts, be there. So it was cool. Yeah.
he was amazing. Oh, by the way, Rosie, what are you guys laughing about? Soup to nuts?
I've never heard that in my life.
Never heard that.
Oh, really? Is that one of those hat bro phrases?
Yeah, it must
Us
be
and I
like,
just side eyed each other like, what?
you're like, what the heck, bro?
Hashtag soup to nuts.
Jeez, oh, man. I wanted to shout out to somebody. Rosie painted live.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
during
yeah,
Worship
that was.
Fest. By the way, the
that
wind
was
was
cool.
blowing stuff everywhere.
That thing blew down at one point.
Oh yeah, I had to go
yeah.
grab it.
I didn't let anyone know, but like it blew like over in front of me, and I kind of picked it up and like brushed some stuff off.
That's so funny. But she painted live, and I was like in my head, I was like, she was an artist of the day, and wanted to name that. And one of the really cool things was she gave her painting to Marcus.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
At
loved
the
that.
end
I
of the
saw that
day.
happen.
And it had such a great message. And crazily enough, like that message and story that she had married exactly with what he was sharing with me earlier
Wow.
about how God was working in his life. And I was just like, man, there is like that whole, like the whole experience, like you just can't make it up of how God has had his hand in it,
Orchestrating stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
we were just along for the ride.
Yeah.
I was scared Rosie was going to go deaf because she was under the speakers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Should've got her
She
some
sat way
headphones or
too close to
something.
us. I was like, you want to go like over here? She's like, no, I want to. This is a good angle. I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, that's crazy.
She's awesome. And the media team as well. Just want to
Yes.
shout out. Raph was there. Joe was there. Jamil was there. Seisha was there. Ralphie was there. I think that's everybody.
Raf's brought someone else. What was his name?
Gabe. Gabe was there.
Gabe was there.
Yeah.
Also, Sean was there.
And Sean did, Sean did screens.
Originally,
Started
Sean
Sparks
wasn't going to be
World
there
Cup.
because we had no screen, and then Marcus put that together, threw it in with some deal.
Yes.
We realized
Wow.
it like late on, and Sean was a late addition because we
Wow.
had said at the beginning we wanted him, but then we were like, oh, it's not going to happen. But then it did happen.
Yes. Yeah, Sean is amazing.
Yeah,
Sean
He's
did
amazing.
like the LED wall stuff.
That
So
stuff that content was awesome.
It looks so cool.
he turned the WorshipFest logo and like made all these different interactive, changing
Yeah, they moved
colored
and
backgrounds
stuff. Yeah,
and
that
stuff
was so cool.
moving. And then every artist would come out and he would hear the song and then be able to get art that would be moving art behind it, like on the fly.
Yeah.
He's just like a beast with that kind of stuff. And he's super creative. And yeah, he was even doing videos of like who's up next.
It only got to happen for like the last two because we just didn't have time to put them together. But I think
Gotcha.
next year, like, let's literally just designate someone to shoot videos with him.
Yeah.
To like day of, like he shoots them, bounces them to him immediately,
Oh,
gets
yeah,
the next one,
yeah.
bounce it to him, like so he
Yeah.
can have it ready.
It was super cool.
Could have a set list ahead of time.
Yeah, set
Did
list.
anyone
It's
have a
good
set
idea,
list
too.
ahead of time, bro?
I got it at
Great
12
question.
a.m., but Scott got 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, it was a fiasco.
Oh, no
But it
shit.
happened.
That's right.
And
It happened.
you know, it's crazy to think like we actually did that.
Yeah.
Because I've been to festivals and you just are enjoying them or you're taking them in or you're performing on them, but you're not thinking about how much goes into making
Right.
that day possible. And it is a lot. And by the grace of God, everything we needed was provided,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
including by the people in this room. And so thank you guys so much for
Yeah.
your investment to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for
very much.
being willing to serve and sacrifice. And, I'm super thankful that we got to be a part of it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Excited for possibilities.
Here we
yeah,
go for 2023.
you never know. Something might be coming. Be on the lookout for that. Also, just want to say thank you to everybody who listened or is listening to this episode. Most of you are here because you partner with and support Ripe Creatives. And your support goes a long way in being able to help us make things like WorshipFest happen. Without your ongoing partnership and support, stories like these don't get shared, and we don't get to do any of the stuff that we get to do. So we just want to say thank you to you. If you're one of our supporters and partners in ministry here in Philly, thank you for being generous towards us. Like this grant person was to Carson Simpson. Thank you for helping us make all the events that we do possible. If you're one of those people that are just here tuning in and you're not a current partner with Ripe Creatives and you would like to do that, you can get on our website at ripecreatives.com, click the give button, and you can partner with us at whatever capacity or frequency is easiest for you. It'd be great if you would consider doing that so that we can do more stuff
Yeah.
in the future. And also, Time is Ripe is a aspect of Ripe Creatives that is funded by our supporters. So thank you for supporting this podcast as well by supporting Ripe Creatives. We appreciate y'all.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys. Oh yeah, Jonathan's one of our partners. We love you. You're the best. We appreciate y'all. And until next time, stay ripe, everybody.
Take our walls, tear them down. Let our feeble hearts begin to sing. Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring. Let freedom